You think you're thinking for yourself. You think you're making your own choices. But what if you're just repeating what you've been taught, what society expects, what your upbringing shaped, what you believe to be true but never truly questioned? What if your fears, your beliefs, your ambitions were nothing more than invisible chains? That's exactly what one of the most radical and unsettling thinkers of the 20th century challenges us to see. His name, Jiddu Krishnamurti, a spiritual philosopher who spent his life asking one essential question: can a human being ever be truly free? Free from authority, free from fear, free from everything we've been told we should be. In this video, we'll explore one of his most powerful and transformative teachings, freedom from the known. You'll discover why this idea has the power to change how you think, love, and live, and why it could be the beginning of a deep inner revolution. If you're not just looking for content, but for awakening, hit subscribe, because what you're about to hear might just break something open. Let's begin. Part 1. Who was Jiddu Krishnamurti? Picture this: a fragile, quiet boy, standing barefoot under the Indian sun. His name is Jiddu Krishnamurti. He's 14 years old. The year is 1909. And one day, everything changes. Members of the powerful Theosophical Society, an esoteric Western movement, claim he is the one. Not metaphorically, literally. A new world teacher, the next spiritual savior of humanity. They build a global organization around him. They educate him, worship him, prepare him for his destiny. A spiritual leader to guide the world into a new era. But then, something no one expects happens. At 34, Krishnamurti walks away from it all. He dissolves the entire movement, the Order of the Star, and renounces every title, every pedestal. And he says one sentence that echoes across time: truth is a pathless land. In other words, there is no path to freedom, no method, no belief system, no spiritual hierarchy, no teacher, not even him. From that moment on, Krishnamurti spends over 60 years speaking around the world, not as a guru, not as a leader, but as a human being. He meets with scientists, monks, psychologists, and everyday people. And his message remains simple and uncompromising. Truth isn't something you learn, it's something you see, directly, clearly, in yourself. Not through beliefs, not through scriptures, not through what others say is true. Unlike most philosophers or spiritual leaders, Krishnamurti gives no teachings to follow, no method of meditation, no technique, just one radical invitation. Look for yourself. Look at your fear. Look at your desire for certainty. Look at how you constantly seek comfort in the known. And ask yourself, am I truly free, or just conditioned to believe I am? Today, more than 35 years after his death, Krishnamurti still influences thinkers, therapists, artists, and seekers. Anyone who senses that real transformation doesn't start with the world, but with yourself. His work, especially his book, Freedom from the Known, reveals an uncomfortable truth. We think we are free, but most of us are just living out patterns planted in us since childhood. And he dares us to question everything, even him. Because as long as we follow a belief, an ideal, an authority figure, we're not truly free. So let me ask you this: who taught you how to think? Do your beliefs really belong to you, or were they handed down? Share your thoughts in the comments. This is where the real work begins. And if this search for radical authenticity speaks to you, subscribe to the channel, because the true journey is just beginning. Part 2. What does freedom from the known really mean? Imagine you live in a house. You've grown up there. It's full of familiar things, the furniture, the smells, the everyday sounds. Even if it feels a bit cramped or uncomfortable at times, it feels safe. Now, imagine someone telling you, true freedom begins the moment you dare to leave that house, to leave everything behind, even what you think you are. That's exactly what freedom from the known means. Freedom from everything you already know. But what exactly does Krishnamurti mean by the known? The known is everything you take for granted as true. The known isn't just what you learned at school, it's everything you've absorbed without ever questioning. Your religious or spiritual beliefs, your political opinions, your expectations about love, your automatic reactions to fear, rejection, or loneliness, your ideas about success, failure, what's normal. It's your past, your upbringing, your culture, your name, your story, your self-image. It's everything you think defines you, but maybe doesn't. The known comforts you, but also traps you. We cling to the known because it feels predictable. It gives us a sense of control. It lets us label things as good or bad. But living inside the known means becoming like a scratched record, repeating the same fights in relationships, making the same choices with the same regrets, staying stuck in the same fears, judgments, and stories. Krishnamurti said, "Only by dying to the known in every moment can something new be born." In other words, as long as you live in the known, you're just recycling the past. You're not creating anything new. You're not truly living. You're just reacting, replaying, surviving. A simple example. Relationships. Take something simple. You meet someone new. At first, you're curious, attentive, open, but quickly you start labeling them. He's like this, she's like that. And from that moment on, you don't really see the person anymore. You see the image you made up of them, and that image becomes the known. Krishnamurti said, "Love cannot exist where there is memory." Why? Because memory freezes things. It turns the present into the past. And to truly love is to see someone as if for the first time. It's pure presence, not a habit, not repetition. The paradox. You think you're free, but you're conditioned. Krishnamurti shakes us because he holds up a mirror. He tells us, you think you're making free choices, but you're just repeating your conditioning. You vote like your parents. You love like in the movies. You work to fit a model you never chose. And even your self-help journey might just be another way of clinging to the known, another method, another belief, another guru. But real change, Krishnamurti says, doesn't come from new ideas. It comes from a radical break with the old. Freedom means ending your inner authority. Krishnamurti doesn't want you to believe him. He doesn't want followers. He says, when you follow someone, you stop following the truth. The freedom he talks about isn't doing whatever you want. It's not rejecting all rules. It's seeing reality clearly, without filters. It's looking inside with total honesty, without running away, explaining, or sugarcoating. And that freedom begins when you see your own conditioning and let it go effortlessly without struggle. A modern take, life on autopilot. Today, our world is flooded with the known. Algorithms feed us what we already like. Media repeat the same stories. Social networks trap us in echo chambers. Even our thoughts loop endlessly like worn-out playlists. Krishnamurti invites us to a soft but radical break, not an external rebellion, an internal stop, a moment of absolute presence, where you watch your thoughts without feeding them, without fleeing. That's where true freedom begins. Not tomorrow, not in a book, not in some future project. Here, now, in the silence of inner awareness. What patterns do you repeat without realizing? Do you sometimes feel like you're on autopilot? Share in the comments one idea, reaction, or habit you want to question, because just seeing it is already the first step to freedom. If this journey toward the essential speaks to you, subscribe to the channel, like this video to support honest, deep, and non-dogmatic conversations. Part 3. How to break free from the known. So, now that you understand what Krishnamurti means by the known, all those layers of conditioning, fears, mental habits, one big question remains. How do you actually break free? How do you step out of this invisible cage when it's precisely that cage that shapes you? And Krishnamurti's answer is as radical as it is unsettling. Truth is a pathless land. He doesn't offer any method, no system, no guru to follow. Why? Because any method is, by nature, a repetition, just another conditioning, another known disguised in a different way. So what does he suggest? 1. Observe without judgment. Everything starts here, not through effort, not by force, not by control, but through clear, silent, non-judgmental observation. Krishnamurti says, to observe is to learn, and learning can only happen in silence. This means watching your thoughts without trying to change them, watching your emotions without labeling them good or bad, watching your automatic reactions as if you were observing an animal in the wild. It's a raw, naked kind of presence, no filters. You don't observe to fix anything. You observe to truly see. 2. Stay alert to your inner patterns. The freedom Krishnamurti talks about isn't some mystical state or sudden enlightenment. It's a constant awareness, a waking up to what's happening inside you, moment by moment. When a thought arises, can you see it without identifying with it? When a notion takes over, can you go through it without clinging to it? When you act on autopilot, can you recognize the pattern and choose not to follow it? It's not a rigid discipline. It's a refinement of consciousness. You're no longer the one reacting. You become the one who sees the reaction and can decide not to follow it. And that alone is a kind of freedom. 3. Reject all psychological authority. Krishnamurti might be the most anti-guru thinker of the 20th century. He says clearly, truth cannot be found through another. No authority, tradition, or religion can lead you to it. Why? Because as soon as you follow someone, you give up your own inner vision. You outsource your consciousness. You go blind. So you have to dare to think for yourself, not arrogantly, not rebelliously, but with honest, open, dogma-free inquiry. Even Krishnamurti said, don't believe me, look for yourself. 4. Meditate without a method. What Krishnamurti calls meditation isn't a relaxation technique. It's not a strict practice with posture, mantra, or breathing exercises. It's a silent watching with no goal, no choice, no tension. You sit down, do nothing. You watch what's happening inside, like a landscape unfolding. And in that watching, something softens. You're no longer struggling to change. You are welcoming. And in that welcome, change happens on its own. Meditation is seeing the movement of thought and letting it pass. Some gentle practices without formalism. Even if Krishnamurti rejects exercises, we can borrow from his approach to seeing without interfering. Here are some gentle ways you can try today. Watching thoughts. Sit quietly for 5 minutes. Don't try to stop thinking. Simply watch your thoughts float by like clouds in the sky. No judgment, no commentary. Pure listening. When someone talks to you, listen without planning your response. Listen without judging, comparing, or analyzing. Just listen. Emotion as a subject to observe. Next time you're overwhelmed by an emotion, anger, fear, sadness, pause. Don't react. Observe what happens in your body, your breath, your mind. Be the witness, not the actor. Freedom isn't a goal. It's a discovery. The trap is making freedom a goal. One day, I will be free. But that day never comes. Krishnamurti says, freedom is not at the end of the path. It's in every step. It's now, in this very moment, that you can reject an automatic thought, choose not to respond to an old fear, see an unconscious pattern, and let it go. It's subtle, fragile, fleeting, but it's real, and it's your responsibility, not that of a master, a book, or a method. What can you observe in yourself without judgment? Take 30 seconds. Close your eyes. Notice the dominant thought right now. Is it a fear, a hope, a tension, a need to understand? Write it down in the comments, not to explain it, just to see it. Because in that simple act of seeing, something inside you already begins to open. Part 4. What happens when you break free? So, what really happens when you free yourself from the known? When you stop identifying with your thoughts, when you stop running from fear, when you stop looking at life through the lens of your past, what actually changes? It all comes down to one word, a quiet, powerful word: authenticity. 1. You become real again. When you're no longer driven by fear, habits, or the image you're trying to maintain, you return to yourself. Not the version of you shaped to please, perform, or be accepted, but the raw, alive, unfiltered you. You stop reacting. You start responding. You stop acting out of need. You act because something within you simply says, yes, this is true. And that changes everything. It brings a kind of alignment where your life and your inner truth begin to match. 2. A new kind of creativity emerges. When the mind is no longer cluttered with reference points, old stories, and borrowed models, something new can flow through. Not creativity as in productivity, but creativity as in meeting the unknown with fresh eyes. You're not recycling the past anymore. You're creating from presence. That's what Krishnamurti meant by unconditioned creativity, expression that doesn't come from memory, but from a quiet space inside that sees without filter. And it's not just about art, it's how you love, how you speak, how you live. 3. The inner conflict fades. When you're no longer at war with your thoughts, when you stop trying to be someone else, when you stop comparing who you are to who you should be, the struggle inside ends. Not because you've won, but because you've stopped playing the game. And in that quiet, something deeper can surface. Peace. Not dramatic, not showy, but steady, grounded, still. You're no longer running from yourself. You're no longer split in two. And that's a silent revolution. 4. Your relationships become real. Once you're no longer projecting the past onto people, once you stop relating through your fears, memories, or unmet needs, you can finally see others as they are, here, now. And that opens the door to a very different kind of relationship. Less fear, less performance, less need to be validated. You can love without clinging. You can listen without trying to fix. You can be with someone without needing to control or label them. It's a path, not a shortcut. Be careful. Krishnamurti never pretended this was easy. This path is anything but comfortable. It's not a 3-step method to feel better. It's not a self-help formula. It's a radical unlearning, a raw encounter with what you really are, a collapse of all the false safety nets you've built. That's why so many turn away, because this way promises nothing except the naked truth. But those who stay, those who choose to look rather than escape, discover a rare quality of life. Vivid, free, quiet, deeply present. A living example, Krishnamurti's presence. Krishnamurti was the embodiment of that freedom. He spoke with disarming clarity, no notes, no structure. He listened as if every question was completely new. And those who met him often said the same thing. There was something utterly still in him. Not charismatic in a flashy sense, but lucid, ego-free, centered. And some who heard him speak didn't walk away converted. They walked away shifted, as if something inside had quietly let go. A fear, a belief, a weight. And in that letting go, freedom began. Your turn. Can you recall a moment, even a brief one, where you felt completely yourself? No mask, no role, no fear? A moment where you weren't trying to control anything, you were simply being? Drop it in the comments. No need for long stories, just a few words to mark that moment. And if this kind of clarity speaks to you, like the video to support honest, grounded content. Subscribe for more explorations, raw, open, and free of dogma. And share this with someone who feels like something essential in them is ready to awaken. Part 5. Why Krishnamurti matters now. You might be wondering, sure, this sounds profound, but wasn't that 50 years ago in front of some intellectuals in India or England? Does any of this even apply today in our fast, noisy, hyper-connected, always-on world? The short answer, this message has never been more relevant. 1. A world full of everything, yet missing something. Today, everything is at your fingertips. You've got endless videos, quotes, self-help tools, mindfulness apps. But how do you actually feel? A constant background noise in your head, a vague sense of exhaustion, mental overload, emptiness. You can scroll for hours and not remember a single real moment. You can be connected to hundreds of people and still feel isolated, fragmented, numb. Krishnamurti saw this coming. He called it the wear and tear of the mind, not caused by work, but by the endless inner conflict we never seem to stop. 2. A culture of comparison. We live in a world obsessed with more attractive, more productive, more visible, more admired, more evolved, even spiritually. But Krishnamurti makes it painfully clear, comparison is a subtle form of violence because it pulls you away from what you are. It makes you wear a mask, play a role, hide your messiness, instead of simply, honestly seeing yourself as you are. As long as you avoid that raw truth, you may become efficient, maybe even impressive, but you won't be free. 3. Can you live this in a normal life? You don't need to quit your job. You don't need to escape to a silent retreat. You don't need to become a monk. Krishnamurti's invitation is radical, but accessible. He's not asking you to change your life. He's asking you to change how you see life. You can live in the city, have a family, pay rent, and still watch your mind. Notice when it judges. Notice when it clings. Notice when it turns fear into identity. And that simple act, pure attention, is already the beginning of freedom. 4. What actually changes? When you live this way, not as a theory but as a direct perception, you react less. You stop being a slave to anxiety, image, or past pain. You return to something simple, honest, essential. You feel more alive, more grounded, more real. Not as a new personality, but as a deeper presence, a way of being that's not lost in the noise. 5. This is not a goal, it's a path. Krishnamurti never said, "Follow me. Here's the method. I have the answer." He simply said, "See for yourself." And that's the true modernity of his voice. In a world where everyone wants to tell you how to live, he reminds you, learn to look for yourself. No gurus, no systems, no effort to fix yourself. This is not about escaping reality. It's about coming back to it, raw, direct, unfiltered. Because this moment, seen clearly, is the only place where freedom can begin. Your turn. So, here's the question. Do you want to learn how to see differently? Not to become someone new, but to finally live as yourself, clear, conscious, alive.